My dear friends, after having personally gone through the scare of the current circumstance, I want to address myself to you with words of hope, words that say we shall overcome this and many other situations, like we have overcome wars and climatic experiences. We will also overcome this pandemic. Maybe the earth has a way to talk to us and to put us in place in reference to our vanity and our arrogance and thinking that we are the masters of the universe and the masters of a planet that we have not taken care of, but we have exploited, sabotaged, polluted, and done whatever we had wanted, only with the idea of personal gain. This virus is a messenger. It's a messenger of RNA, riboxynucleic acid. It's the messenger RNA, the mRNA. And this quarantine that we found ourselves suddenly immersed in gives us the time to reflect on the purpose of our life, it being not just the exploitation of the earth without consideration of future generations, but the care of the earth. When it says in Scripture, "Thou shalt do whatever to dominate the other forms of life on the earth," we forget many times to read that we have to take care of them also. And the role of custodian has definitely been set aside. We see that this epidemic, unfortunately for our brothers and sisters in Italy, is horrifying. And we see that we have not acted in a preemptive way in the United States, considering other interests, such as the re-election campaign or the stock market, instead of the fabrication of new ventilators, masks, and means of containment. I personally had the opportunity of being hospitalized in Denver, Colorado last week, and I experienced the overflow and the incapacity of doctors and nurses to take care of 60 patients per hour. The emergency rooms were full. There were no beds. I personally was lying on a stretcher for 6 hours that my knees were hanging. I am 6'3", and the stretcher is made for dwarfs. But notwithstanding that fact, I survived. I don't have the Covid-19, the coronavirus. And I can turn to you to tell you to take care of yourselves so you can take care of others. That solidarity is the key. That this isolation that we have been ordered to be, the social distancing that we have ordered to participate in, allows us for the reflection that maybe we are isolated most of the time, living our individualistic lives and being separate from everybody else just to the advantage of the protagonist in our own dream. And this is a time in which we are ordered to be isolated, but thanks heaven we are in the era of social media. We are in the era of internet, and maybe it was just invented for this, so that we can come together through this media in the distance and ask, how are you doing? How can I be of service? What can I do for you? And tell you how I am feeling. I never thought that living in the most advanced country in the history of humanity, we would be lacking the necessary tools, not to defeat a virus for which we had no previous history, its virulence, its aggressiveness, its spread. But when I hear that people don't have access to tests, when in South Korea 11,000 tests are done daily, and in this country 10,000 tests have been done in a month, it shames me that our priorities have been so capitalistically oriented that we do not take care of the realities that might overcome us. I wish we enter into heartfelt reason. For heartfelt reason, we have to live in the heart and be mindful. That means activate our minds and brains and realize that our purpose as human beings, as custodians of the planet, as custodians for the well-being of each other, is not limited to a bottom line of productivity, nor to a surname that says we are great, we're fantastic. Our government is failing, once again, as I have been speaking for decades, that governments, the way they have been enacted in the past half a century, are self-centered machines for their own re-elective purposes, and that we are ripe with teledemocracy to consider that the same way as absolutism was replaced during the French Revolution for a more democratic way of relating, we in this isolation, in this quarantine, might as well begin to think, what is the next form of government? We have delegated our personal awakening power into individuals whose greed and whose desire to be somebody by a feeling that they're nobody inside and want to be somebody considered by others are being the decision makers and the choosers of our life. This will change. This has to change. This is another form of pollution, like the pollution that is diminishing both in China, where a stop took place, and in Venice, where the canals attract swans now instead of dirt. I recall having written in 1980s and published in 1984 in the Forum of New York a document that in 1985 was used in the Contadora meetings between Sandinistas and Contras, of which I was an instrumental part in the making of peace, in the building of peace, a document that I entitled at the time, Peace for a New Era. And in Peace for a New Era, I say that there will come the time in which we will have to really stop, do a halt, and begin to introspect deeply, not in long hours of meditation, but instantaneously focus on the fact that we are here, we are now, and that we need to create a future in which the majesty of presence needs to be senior to the majesty of post-industrial revolution productivity. Man, woman has changed when we did the scientific industrial revolution, and we began to identify with possessiveness instead of honor, with having instead of caring. And not that in the previous times we were very careful and generous, neither in the Middle Ages nor in the Antiquity. But as we are evolving, this is a time in which I sincerely think, I sincerely believe that the time has come, through the lesson of coronavirus, to use the corona, to use the crown that this virus represents, and enthrone ourselves in our true majesty. No millionaire and no poor person is free from the possibility of contagious. We are all in an equal stand. No amount of billions and no amount of weaponry can protect us from an invisible attacker. The wall that the president has tried to wall to keep the undesirables out is not capable to keep an undesirable pathogen out of our system. So we need to reevaluate with the eyes of the 21st century what we truly need and what we have been told that we want in order to be. I will intend to come present frequently during the next couple of weeks to share my feelings and my thoughts, God willing, if I can, because this is a time in which the news are plagued with negative information, and I would like to give a positive data, and that is you and I, right now, are alive. And there is a gratitude that emanates from still being alive, and that force restores the immune system and restores our endorphins and restores our willingness to live, but live with a purpose, live with the willingness to help others and help ourselves, to love ourselves in order to love others in order to care for others, and others are black, white, yellow, Christians, Muslims, Hindus, Jews, Sikhs, Amazonian, shamanistic tribes, and that we cannot continue living in the separation. And definitely, this virus is not Chinese. This virus is a virus and belongs to the kingdom of the domain it came from. Let us not demonize humanity once again with these epidemics. Let us be open and clear and see how we can cooperate and take from scientific minds that which can orient us in defeating the problem we're in. May you be blessed. May your family be blessed. I love you, and we will see you very soon.